I think AI is the biggest change in our world since the invention of electricity,
Mm,
a bigger change than the internet. Um,
mm,
and if you're not using it for half an hour a day, you don't understand.
mhm.
You need to put it on your calendar and go use it.
What's up, brand builders? Stephen Hurahan here on the Brandmaster Podcast. And in this episode, I'm speaking with the one and only Mr. Seth Godin about branding and marketing in the age of AI. Now, Seth is arguably the GOAT when it comes to branding and marketing. He certainly had a massive impact on my career and my philosophies, as he has had millions of other branders and marketers around the world. Early on in his career, he built and sold some early internet marketing companies for literally tens of millions of dollars. This is way back in 1998. And since then, he's written 21 bestsellers in the marketing industry, including classics such as The Purple Cow, This Is Marketing, and All Marketers Are Liars, to name just a few. And I have to say, I really enjoyed our chat today, and we dug into branding and positioning with tension in the modern age. We spoke about the impact of AI in the marketing industry and how AI is the biggest thing since electricity, according to Seth, and how professionals and brand builders can stay ahead in the AI age. So if you want to learn from a futurist who literally wrote 21 bestsellers of the industry, selling tens of millions of copies, then don't miss this episode of the Brandmaster Podcast. Welcome to the Brandmaster Podcast, a show specialized in helping branding professionals and entrepreneurs to build brands using strategy, psychology, and creative thinking. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brandmaster Podcast. And I am absolutely delighted, ecstatic, over the moon to have the one and only Mr. Seth Godin on the show with us today. Seth, who needs no introduction, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, a pleasure. Happy to chime in if I can.
Beautiful. Now, you are, this is a perfect example of the philosophy that I like, which is if you don't ask, you don't get. I was actually chatting with my team and we were going through who should we have on the podcast, and Seth Godin came up and I said, no, don't send an email to Seth. Seth will be too busy. And then I said, you know what? Just send it. He might say yes. And when the email popped up, I was absolutely delighted. So,
Well,
so
thank
yeah,
you. I don't want to start by having an argument with you, but I don't have much truck with the if you don't ask, you don't get
no.
philosophy. I think it's if you don't offer, you can't make things better. And I didn't view showing up on this podcast to chat with you as something you would get or
Mm,
something that you were asking. That
mm,
plenty of people spam me and ask me for ways that I can help them achieve their goals,
mm.
but we're aligned. So you made an offer,
Beautiful.
and I thought this is fun to do together. So here I am.
And I've watched a ton of your stuff on the lead up to this, and I noticed the philosophical, background to your chats, and just going through your bio, I noticed that your studies were actually in philosophy. So I was like, that's why. And I was even tempted to just throw at the whole marketing and branding stuff and just have a chat like that, because some of your previous interviews have been really fascinating. But as a man who lives and breathes marketing, you know that we are here to serve a specific audience, and
Hmm.
our specific audience are brand builders, marketers, brand leaders, and they want to know what you think about that side of the
Sure.
business. So I'm going to start with just a kind of broad one. Now, I know that you talk a lot about the way people used to speak about advertising and marketing synonymously, but marketing is this whole other kettle of fish. It's way beyond that. I speak about branding and marketing in the same kind of way, because I do believe that branding, as it was once taught, as a subset of marketing, has evolved into this bigger entity. What's your take on that, and how do you see the balance between the two?
Well, the people who are listening understand better than almost anybody that a brand is not a logo.
Mm-hmm.
But we still get stuck on the language. Like we have a new brand. Well, no, you don't have a new brand. You have a new logo.
Mm-hmm.
We're going through a branding exercise. Well, no, you're actually going through a logoing exercise. I don't think logos matter. And one of my favorite ways to think about this is, close your eyes for a second and visualize what you think of as a great logo, right? You got one in mind?
Mm-hmm.
Almost always, people will identify one that is actually associated with the brand they admire. That very few people pick evil symbols from World War II, even though from a logo point of view, they were pretty powerful,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we don't do that. And in fact, the Starbucks logo is terrible. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a terrible logo. Why would you want a half naked person with bad hair, right? But we associate it with a brand. So branding is, I think, the act of building a story that's resilient, that finds a spot in someone's brain because they want it there,
Mm-hmm.
that it's a shorthand for the promises that we're making and whether or not we're going to keep them. It's a symbol that we've earned trust.
Mm.
And so getting your brand right has nothing to do with how you look and feel. It has a lot to do with how other people think you
Mm.
look and feel.
Mm. Yeah, and that's it. Like you hit the nail on the head. There is a massive education gap in the market when it comes to brand, and we see that more and more because it's so easy now to start a business, and you don't need an education in branding or marketing to start a business, and you make a lot of assumptions as a newbie entrepreneur, and that's where a lot of the confusion is coming from, because you've got a lot of people speaking about stuff in a certain kind of way when as you said, there are some differences there that need to be understood to be able to apply them correctly. Now, I speak a lot about strategy specifically, and when I talk about brand strategy, I talk about the likes of positioning,
Mm-hmm.
storytelling, brand personality. So to me, the strategy of the brand is the method of the brand. And then to me, marketing, which you might argue with me here, is the mobilization of that brand.
Mm-hmm.
So how this method is mobilized in the market.
Yeah.
Is that how you would separate
I
the
think
brand
that's a
strategy?
really, I think it's a really useful way to do it. I think that many of the people who call themselves brand strategists are not.
Hmm.
That does Oreo, the cookie, have a brand strategy? Well, they had one a long time ago, but now they have brand tacticians.
Hmm.
They have people who are doing marketing tactics to maintain a brand that had a strategy from a long time ago. Strategy requires the desire for a change. That how are you going to move pieces on the board so that your share of whatever it is, the difference you seek to make, the change you're making, will go in the direction that you want. And if you're not here to make a change happen, then the tactics, they're not unimportant. But when we're going to talk strategy, it's about positioning, it's about game theory, and it's about time. How will tomorrow be different than today? What are you doing today going to change the dynamic in the marketplace? Because people have choices and they're not going to pick something because you want them to.
Mm, yeah, I love that. And, so much of what I learned about positioning came from your work. I remember devouring The Purple Cow and Positioning by Al Ries and Jack Trout at the same time. And for me, that's the center point of strategy, because positioning is really the reason that you give the audience to choose your brand over your competitors. And really, that's why we build a brand, is to give those people a reason. What have you seen change in the let's say the art of positioning since you wrote The Purple Cow? Because you wrote The Purple Cow quite a while back, and the fundamentals don't change. But what have you seen? Have you seen anything change in positioning since you've written the book?
Okay, so, Trout and Reese's book a very long time ago had a big impact on me. The subtitle is The Battle for Your Mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest change is this, and having taught positioning to more people than most, positioning is a generous act. It is not a battle. It is not selfish. It is not about differentiation. It is not about gaining something. It is about offering people who are busy a clear map of who you are and who you're not. If you are not eagerly sending potential business to your quote competitors, then you don't actually have a position. Basically, you're saying we're for everyone and you're everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And positioning says if you want an $18 chocolate bar that's bespoke and handmade and ethical, that's what we make. If you
Mm-hmm.
want a Nestle's bar to give out on Halloween that's made with slave labor, that's what they make. Here's their phone number. We
Mm-hmm.
don't compete with Nestle. They're doing that. We do this.
Mm-hmm.
Positioning is this generous act to say, if you're looking for this, that's what we have. But if you're looking for that, that's what they have.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And look, it does turn the table on it a little bit, and it kind of it leans into that idea that we're here to serve as well. And if you figure out the best way to serve your audience, then you can position that in a way that will appeal to them. I like to talk about positioning in terms of angles. Angles or verticals. Of course, you can position with your product, with features and benefits, but there are more creative ways to position. And with how busy markets are getting at the moment, it's almost a requirement to look to other angles for positioning. What are some of your more creative angles to position from, whether it be personality or associations? What are some of the more creative angles that you like to look at?
Okay, so I would say two really useful lessons. The first one is this. We're all familiar with the XY grid
Mm-hmm.
that's used for positioning. If you're going to do it right, all four quadrants have to be viable, meaning you're not allowed to have one of the axes be good stuff, bad stuff. Our competitors make bad stuff, we make good stuff. They have to be things.
They were my first ones.
Yeah, exactly. That's the very tempting thing to do. The problem with that is unless you have magical patents or machines, you will not be able to make a thing that is better for everyone all the time.
Mm.
That the position that's available to us is, oh, you might want a luxury handbag. We don't make those. We make inexpensive handbags. Those are different things. Some people might want one, some people might want the other. You might want a durable backpack that comes with a lifetime guarantee, but you might not care about that. You might just want one that's convenient and cheap, right? Both of those things are valid. So that's the first thing. Pick valid axes for everybody. And the second thing is, we talk about features and benefits, but most marketers I know still get hung up on the features. And the truth of the matter is that we care about the features because we worked really hard to build the features. But our customers don't care about the features at all. They only care about what the features will get them. And what they will get them are benefits. And so, button-fly jeans, that's a feature. The benefit is your girlfriend will think you look good in these. Those are different things.
Yeah, I love that. And that kind of segues perfectly into the idea of storytelling, because when you can sell a feature all day, but you can sell a benefit through a story. And you're one of the biggest advocates for storytelling that I've seen. But I do see a lot of confusion out there as to what storytelling actually is. A lot of people believe that they should tell the story of the founder, who had a dream as a boy and grew up to do this, that, and the other. And as you said, no one cares about the founder. They care about themselves. They care about, what's in it for them, or how this story touches them or aligns with who they are. What mistakes are you seeing brands making in the market with storytelling, and how can they correct them?
So the world's expert on storytelling is Bernadette Jiwa. She's written 5 bestsellers about it, Jiwa. She's from Ireland and Australia, and she's a
like
superstar.
myself, exactly like myself.
Storytelling is the basic human technology. And the stories that resonate with us are either about status, fear, or affiliation. One of the three. That's all we got. And a story is a shorthand that goes to the emotional part of our brain that turns into our story, that turns into a story that becomes part of us. So an example of a story is, last time I checked, 20% of the people in the state of Georgia in the US have Coca-Cola for breakfast. And there isn't an ad campaign that says drink Coke for breakfast. But the story is simple, which is my mom fed me Coke for breakfast. Drinking Coke for breakfast reminds me of my mom. Being reminded of my mom makes me feel safe. That is why people drink Coke for breakfast in Georgia. And when they said, oh, new Coke tastes better, they were basically insulting your mom. And that's why the whole thing fell apart, because they didn't understand there's always a story behind the story.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you broke down that so simplistically. And really, that is our role, as brand builders. It's about, simplicity. It's about simplification. It's about making the complex easy to understand and compelling at the same time. When you talk about a story like that, and really I'm thinking more so from a small business perspective. I mean, it's applicable to big business as well. But what would be some of the more tactical delivery methods of stories like that, with all of the channels that we have available to us now? How can we break something down like that and deliver it tactically, to our different channels?
Okay, so if we're going to shift to tactics, let's talk about the Wheeler Witch for a second.
Okay.
In the late 1920s, early 1930s, there were a lot of soda fountains in the United States, and it was the Depression. And the people who worked at a soda fountain were called jerks. And so a soda jerk would stand there and make you a milkshake or an ice cream soda and stuff. And there were big businesses that were selling these things. They hired a trainer named Wheeler to help increase sales. And it turns out, as disgusting as it sounds, that one of the things that people would eat in those days was an ice cream soda or a milkshake with a raw egg in it. And the raw egg cost a penny or a nickel, and it gave you your protein for the day. And they wanted to make sales of eggs go up because it was a place to make a profit. And you could talk about the benefits of an egg, and you could talk about the cost effectiveness of an egg, and you could talk about all of the ways that there are features that you should add to shake. And instead, what Wheeler taught the jerks was this. When someone orders a soda, you say to them, 1 egg or 2. And it dramatically increased the number of people who put 1 egg in, because the Wheeler Witch said, look, most people are taking 1 or 2. Do you want to be like most people, or do you want to be a cheap ass and take none? But they didn't use those words. They just created a story, a situation where you got to feel like a big spender for a penny and add that raw egg. You didn't want to disappoint the jerk and say none. 1 or 2 were the options. So that's a tactic. It doesn't work if you're manipulating people. They come back tomorrow because the egg made them feel better. But you needed something to get under their skin, because they were coming from a place of scarcity and they were believing they couldn't afford an egg.
Yeah, and that's it really. When we're delivering our brands to the market, it's about finding that way to get under their skin, and that really comes from deep audience research and really understanding what they're all about. In This Is, I want to shift gears into something that you wrote in This Is Marketing, which is something that I love, the smallest viable market. What are some of the most effective methods for finding the smallest viable market? Because as you said, so many brands make the mistake of going out there, certainly small businesses, and all they want is business, and they're prepared to just say we're for everybody. But because of that, because they want that business, they're kind of afraid to close the door to other businesses, or to be brave to go and find that smallest viable market. What are some of the most effective methods that you use for doing that?
This is a great place to focus. And you left out what I think is the main reason people don't pick a smaller audience. Part of it is the greed of saying, I want everyone. But a big part of it is the fear of, if I pick a precise audience and it doesn't work, now I'm really on the hook. So let's say you make headphones. Well, most people say, I make headphones for anyone with ears. And you could say, well, I make headphones for podcasters. You could say, I make headphones for podcasters who do video things and want people to notice their headphones. So let's say you pick that very precise audience and they don't buy it. Now you're on the hook. because you're the one who picked the audience.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say, well, I'm going to go switch to another audience because you picked the audience.
Mm.
But in fact, in my experience, this is the single most important strategic decision that any brand makes, to pick the precise audience. Patagonia picked the precise audience. Nike picked the precise audience. You can get very, very big with a very precise audience because over time it smears and goes to more people.
Whole
But
Foods is a great example of
yeah,
that as well.
right. In my case, I've written 21 bestsellers and not one of them has reached more than 1% of the US population, which means I have 0% market share if you round it off. And that is fine with me. And if someone says, I didn't like your book, I get to say it wasn't for you.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. Like there is this fear of going all in and uh of putting a flag in the ground and saying, this is my flag, this is where I'm standing. Because a lot of a lot of people building brands are doing it for the first time. There there are many entrepreneurs out there who are, you know, trying to turn what they do for a living into a business, and the concept is counterproductive, that they would close the door to all of these other businesses and just focus on this vertical. But as you said, and for me, I like to talk about relevance. The more relevant you can be to people, their pain points, even the way they talk, the personality that they use, the more relevant you can be to that audience, the more likely they are to talk to you rather than the competitor around the corner who has the doors open to everybody else. In terms of strategy, because there are a lot of executioners out there. I don't know of any other industry where we have so many different verticals, so many different specialists who really work on the same thing, but from a completely different angle, from designers to copywriters to social media marketers. Do you believe that having a baseline understanding of strategy is really important for executioners, and do you believe that will help them in their work?
Okay, so either you're working in the system or you're working on the system.
Mm-hmm.
If you work in the system, it would really help if you were seen as the best at what you do. So if you are a book cover designer and you make the best book covers, you're never going to have to look for work. You don't have to change the publishing system. You don't have to change the way people engage with books. You are the executioner, the person who knows how to do that really well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're like me and you have a limited attention span and you are focused on making a change happen, it helps to be able to change the system. And if you want to change the system, you have to understand the system. You have to see the system. You have to be able to cause actions to occur that will change the game. And that's what great brands do.
Mm-hmm.
Once you figure that out, you get all this new resilience because there's other things you can focus on. There are other tactics available to you. So I think those are the two paths, one or the other. And I don't know very many people who do brand strategy well. Like people at very big, famous companies will reach out to me and say, do you know who we should hire to do this? And I can think of tons of people who can do tactics, but they need someone to tell them what to do. And there aren't very many people who can show up and actually have a strategy.
Yeah, and that's what I'm finding as well, because you have the tacticians now on the front lines because they're freelancers and small shops, and they're asking their clients, their clients are giving them work, and they're asking questions. Well, why should we do this? What's the reason behind it? And that's why so many of these tacticians are turning inwards now to work in the business instead of on the business, because they're starting to ask those questions and they're realizing those questions need answering before we do anything. And that by asking those questions, that's where you're getting to the heart of strategy. So yeah, look, I'm a big proponent for really having the fundamentals of strategy regardless of your tactical work if you're in the realm of branding. but I think that's becoming even more important now. Permission marketing, Seth, you wrote the book on it, and it's something that I'm I'm a follower, I'm a believer, I'm a preacher of permission marketing, because I find that it's a much more intimate place. It's where I express myself most. I know it's where you do as well with your blog and your newsletter, and you're not on the front lines, trying to get attention. You've got their attention already, and you've got their permission, and now it's about that relationship building. In terms of where we're going at the moment, is there anything changing for you in the space of permission marketing or anything around it, or do you still feel that this is ultimately the best place for nurturing your clients?
Okay, so narcissistic, short-term thinking, selfish, self-absorbed, hustling marketers have ruined every medium they've shown up in because they think I just have to get the word out, that I have some sort of moral right to spam and steal attention.
Yeah.
And, in the time that I will be on this call, I will have gotten a dozen notes asking if people can be on my podcast from people who have never listened to my podcast because I've never once had a guest, right? But they buy a list and spam away. It really offends me because it's like peeing in the pool. It's not helpful, and it ends up making the pool unusable. And for the few who have self-discipline and pull it off, permission is gold, right? That, it took me decades to build my permission base, but there are a million people who read what I write every day, and I don't have to hustle anybody because I get to do work for my readers instead of looking for readers for my work. What a privilege. And we see this in all these brands and industries that people say they want to aspire to be like, but they don't want to do the hard work of earning the asset. And the asset might not be email. It might be a telephone call. It might be visiting somebody. It might be SMS. That's not the question. The question is, would we miss you if you were gone? And I got to say, most people who call themselves brands, the answer is no. That if Hyatt Hotels disappeared, we'd just stay in a different hotel.
I love the finish of every single sentence that you've been putting forward. Yeah, look, like in terms of with my list for Brandmaster Academy, I'm ruthless with pruning that. I've pruned probably over 60,000 people, and I'm still only at 35,000 people, but I've got 45 to 50% open rates, and that's telling me that keep pruning, because the ones who are staying there are the ones who are telling you what they want. So you can use that for a feedback loop as well, and it's going to be your most dialed in feedback loop. So pruning is something that's really important. Do you prune your list at all in with your newsletter?
So I am not trying to I've intentionally decommercialized all this kind of work. So there's no upside for me to make my open rate go up. I don't know what my open rate
You're not
is.
a metrics man.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be. I invented email marketing. And so we were really metrics focused, but it wasn't helping my work get better as a creator. So I stopped doing it. The thing that's happened with email is there's so much breakage along the way. And then Gmail comes along. They put my blog in the promo folder. My blog is in a promo, and they don't do it for everybody, but they do it often enough to annoy me. Those people aren't unsubscribing, and they're not unopening it. They're just not seeing it. And then one day, months from now, they change it and it comes back. I'm like, okay, great, fine. If I'm helpful, fine. If people go looking for it, fine. But I'm not going to spend my days, because you're looking at my entire team. It's just me, and I don't want to optimize. I just want to do my work, and I hope people.
And that's it.
People want to share it.
you're in that position now where you're
Right, but
just
I'm not a
giving
good
to the
example,
world.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think your example makes a lot of sense. Pruning it isn't as important as you being clear
Mm,
about who these people are, writing for people who need you to write for them. That if
mhm.
you are writing for the right people, they'll prune themselves. And being clear to yourself about who it's for and what it's for, that makes a big difference.
I love that. If you're writing for the right people, they'll prune themselves. That's a quote right there. Authenticity. You like to speak about authenticity, and I've written about authenticity, and it's kind of gotten a bad rap because it's on the one hand, it's like, well, duh. It's like saying, one of our values is integrity. There are some basics that are just, assumed. Um, why do you feel there is a need for this sense of authenticity, and what are some of the better ways that we can kind of display that in our messaging?
Okay, so I'm sort of known for being the anti-authenticity person.
Mm,
I'm the pro-integrity person.
mhm,
Integrity means being in and of itself. And authenticity is this internet thing of if you feel like being a jerk, be a jerk and say, I was just being authentic. No one wants you to be authentic. What we want is for you to be consistent. So whether or not you feel like being the best version of yourself, we need you to be the best version of yourself because that's what we paid for.
mm,
And so articulate what that is. If you're a surgeon, if you're a copywriter, if you're doing customer service, what would be the best version of you if you are authentically in a bad mood? What would be the integral version of you?
mm.
What do people see when you think that no one is looking? That is what people care about. Every time I hear people talk about authenticity, I think what they're looking for is an excuse to be difficult or to be a troll. I was just being authentic. Yeah, well, then go away because I have no interest in you.
I want to switch gears into something that is kind of been thrust upon us in the last, in the last year or so, and that is artificial intelligence in
Mm-hmm.
branding and marketing. How do you see it's going to change the discipline? What's branding and marketing going to look like in 5 years' time? I know it's too difficult now to say 10 years. What do you think it's going to be like in 5 years' time? And also, how should professionals try to approach it to stay ahead?
Okay, I think AI is the biggest change in our world since the invention of electricity,
Mm,
a bigger change than the internet. Um,
mm,
and if you're not using it for half an hour a day, you don't understand.
mhm,
You need to put it on your calendar and go use it. So
mm,
I put a 40-page business plan into Claude.ai. The plan had been written by 6 people over the course of 3 months. It was a gradual, incremental
mm,
thing. And I said, please read this business plan and highlight the contradictions and paradoxes within. And less than 10 seconds later, it wrote me a 2-page MBA quality memo highlighting things about it that we needed to go fix.
mm,
Um, every word that I put out there with my name on it was written by me. But if I was starting today, that would not be true.
mhm,
And uh, what AI does today is it replaces competence. If you are simply mediocre, I can get an AI to do it cheaper and faster than you.
mm,
And that means that the only space left is to not be simply competent, to not simply be what people expect. You have to figure out how to do something that AI couldn't do, because that's the only thing worth charging for. And when you are doing work that could be done by AI, you should have AI do it. So you can get back to the work that we need to pay you for. And so, if I'm a company that comes up with brand names, oh boy, you're in big trouble because I can give AI the right prompt and get 100 brand names faster than you can sit down at your desk.
mm,
And if you go to Kittle, Kittl, they can design logos and things that are logo like instantly in large quantity. Not the world's best, not chip kid quality, but one level below that. So if you're already one level below chip kid, you got a problem.
mm. So what do you do? So for the designer or the brand namer who's looking at AI going, oh no, what am I going to do now? what would your first direction, what would your first instinct be to evolve and keep your head above water?
Well, I think the first thing is I would like to see the certificate that you have that says we're never going to change the system and you're guaranteed your old job forever. Because I don't think you have that certificate. The job you have didn't exist 40 years ago. So why do you think it's going to live forever? It's not, right? And so we got to start by saying, you have helped create change, and now change is coming after you. When the steam shovel came along, the ditch diggers didn't say, oh, this isn't fair. They figured out how to operate a steam shovel. Well, the same thing is true here, that the opportunity for agile, smart people to take advantage of AI over the next 3 years are enormous. That there's going to be this huge, we just gave you 5,000 shoemakers and you're a cobbler and they're going to work all night for you. 5,000 of them. So hire them and get to work.
Yeah, it is. That's it. Like it's about learning and embracing and, just using the tools at our disposal, and that's all we've ever had. Someone in the group asked me, how do you feel about every single post now sounding like Seth Godin, because prompts are out there saying, write it like Seth Godin?
I'm very flattered by this. There was a 5 or 10 year period when I was writing my blog, when if I wasn't having a great day, I would just say to myself, well, what would Seth do? Because it's about the consistent thing, right? That I was visualizing a voice in my head that is the archetype of me, but some days I'm not that person authentically. I just need to be consistent. Now, computers can do that. So I have to figure out how to write a blog post worth writing that an AI couldn't write. And, I had the first blog with AI built into it. You could, at Seths.blog, you can go ask my blog any question you want. And I took a lot of care to make sure it's not saying this is Seth talking, it's an AI talking about what my blog was about. And what I'm helping people see is being parodied, being copied is a compliment. But it also means that the person who's being complimented has to raise their game.
Yeah, absolutely. Seth, I'm not going to keep you too much longer. You're at the beginning of your day. I'm sure you've got a ton of things to do. However,
and I've got Murray here. Who's
you got Murray.
Can we? Time, yes.
You going to introduce Murray, or no?
Murray's
happy out, is he?
Murray's from the shelter. He's been here for 5 weeks. I'm doing my best.
Okay, beautiful. Love to hear it. So if I had to strip you of your Seth Godin title and put you at the head of an unfunded startup with pretty limited budget, what would be the top 3 things that you do to get that brand on the map?
Okay, well, the first question is, are you seeking to be funded or not? If you're seeking to be funded, you have to make something that funders want to fund. That doesn't mean it's a good business. It means it's something funders want to fund. Not my thing I'm interested in, so I'm going to leave that part. Number 2 then is I got to build something customers want to buy. And to do that, I have to create tension. The tension of my life will be better if I listen to this, and I'm about to be left behind if I don't. And creating tension is something that most people don't seek to do. They want to relieve tension. They want to say, you have your back itches, here's a back scratcher. Done. All those slots are filled. The slots that are left, I'm no fan of Facebook, but what was Facebook's pitch? How did they grow? It was super simple. They said to unpopular Harvard men, people are talking about you behind your back. You want to see what they're saying. That was the pitch. So you had to be confident enough in yourself to say, no, I don't care. Everybody else flocked to the thing, and then they started talking about women. So they started saying to Harvard women, people are talking about you behind your back. You want to see what they're saying? And then on and on. You create this tension that can only be solved with forward motion and connection. And then the third piece is the network effect. That the most important thing that the internet did to marketing is simple. If you create something that works better when other people are using it, we will tell other people. The fax machine is a perfect example of this. First person who had a fax machine, what could they do with it? Can't send a fax to yourself because you get a busy signal. You had to tell your friends to go get a fax machine so you could send them a fax. we can create things that work better when we tell the others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that philosophy on tension, and it really speaks to the idea that you don't find a position these days, you create one, and you create one by creating tension, and I really, really love that. Now, I'm going to let you go. Usually I ask my guests, what have you got coming up? What's your call to action? Where can I send people? But, you're just giving back. What's coming up for you at the moment, Seth?
In March, we're launching a software tool that hopefully will raise $1 billion for charity.
Wow.
And it's been a labor of love. It's going very well. And people will find out about it on my blog when it's ready. It'll be fun.
Beautiful. So if you want to find out about that, get on over to Seth's blog. Seth, I really, really do appreciate the time. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I'm made up with this chat. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Stephen. Keep
Cheers,
making a
Seth.
ruckus. We'll see you.
Bye-bye. Want to take a second to show some appreciation. I appreciate every single one of our listeners, but I have a soft spot for listeners who share the love. Shout out to Revelatory from Saudi Arabia. I found a masterpiece. Thank you so much for all the great info in this podcast. If you want to share the love and possibly get a shout out on the podcast, please take a couple of minutes to leave a review on your favorite platform. We really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you want to learn more brand strategy techniques to level up your skills, make sure you check out brandmasteracademy.com. There's plenty of free resources and premium content for you to download and get you going. If you'd like to join our Facebook group full of like-minded brand strategists, all learning from each other, then find us by searching for the Brand Strategy Community, where you can find exclusive content for members as well. If you enjoyed this content, please be sure to give us an honest review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listened, and make sure you tune in for the next episode of the Brandmaster Podcast.